If you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You are a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
You just heard from Amanda Robbins, who had a moment of clarity and realized that she is indeed an idiot for voting for Donald Trump, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And as you saw, the straw that finally broke the camel's back for her, presumably, was rising gas prices. In other words, she was fine with him being a corrupt, autocratic, racist, war criminal, rapist, and potential pedophile, but she drew the line at gas prices because, of course, that affects her personally, therefore she cares. You see, she doesn't think that the Iran war is bad because it's leading to death and destruction abroad. She couldn't care less about the little girls that Trump is bombing in schools. She thinks that the Iran war is bad specifically because it affects her personally at the pump. And her paying an extra 50 cents per gallon is what finally snapped her out of the trance that Trump had her under for 10 years now. You know what? This might be a hot take, I'm not sure, but either way, fuck these people. Fuck people like her who would literally vote for Hitler's reanimated corpse if he promised to bring down the cost of gas by 25 cents. I genuinely believe that. That is how low my opinion is of American voters. And what's crazy is that Trump didn't really even talk about the economy on the campaign trail, so I don't know why they think this. Like, he was talking about Arnold Palmer's penis and making it seem like he was sucking a dick with a microphone on stage. And then there was one rally when he was like swaying back and forth to Ave Maria. And when he finally was talking about politics, he was talking about all the Hitler shit that he wanted to do. Yet so many Americans assumed that he would bring down the costs, quite frankly, because they're fucking dumb. And most of the time, whenever you hear from Trump supporters who have buyer's remorse all of a sudden, they only turn on him when something that he does negatively affects them. And they have to know that he's responsible for the thing that they don't like. Otherwise, they're not going to turn on him. And I've got another example for you. In response to a headline about Donald Trump privately admitting that nobody gives a shit about housing, a 3-time Trump supporter on Twitter said, "I can't believe I voted for Donald Trump," presumably because he delusionally thought that Trump would bring down the cost of housing for some reason. But people in the replies took the time to remind him of how stupid he was for thinking that. He was bombarded with virtually every conceivable Fell for It Again award meme and memes pointing out how gullible Trump voters like him are. But this really was my favorite. Quote, "The reason you guys believe Donald Trump wouldn't start more wars, bring on more debt, and release the Epstein files is because you are stupid. You are a stupid person with a baby brain. You would be fooled by a game of peekaboo because you're stupid. 10 hours of keys jingling." But this particular Trump supporter felt so triggered by the libs dunking on him that he took back his comments, writing, "The liberals in the comments make me not regret it anymore. Never mind. If Kamala had won, you all would be even more insufferable if that was even possible." And I have to say, I find his comment so hilarious because it really speaks to how petulant and baby-brained MAGA is. The totality of their politics centers on them and how they feel. It's just me, fuck everybody else. And I guess that there's a sizable portion of these selfish dipshits who honestly believe that they're going to be welcomed back to the rest of society with open arms after they just unleashed fascism on the country. But I'm sorry, you don't need to be coddled right now. You need a swift kick in the fucking ass, metaphorically speaking, and you need to feel bad and stupid for doing a bad and stupid thing. And look, I think it's fair if you want to criticize me for potentially turning away new MAGA converts by being mean, because that very clearly affects them. But in all honesty, fuck them. I can't be fake and pretend like I want to give these people another chance, because I'm more interested in revenge than rehabilitation right now. If I'm being honest, like, I'm just giving it 100. I don't care. And I'm not going to feel satisfied until the triple Trumpers eat a sufficient amount of shit and feel embarrassed enough for what they put us all through. And unfortunately, there's a lot of young people who are going to have to live with this shame for the rest of their lives as well, because a lot of them voted for Donald Trump, and more of them are realizing just how badly they fucked up. But they're only realizing that they fucked up because, say it with me, something Trump did affected them personally, or they think it's going to affect them personally. Specifically, war with Iran. Again, not thinking about the children Trump's killing, just, hey, how is this going to affect me? Will I be drafted? So there's an article published in Puck News by Peter Hamby, and he writes about how Gen Z men, many of whom voted for Donald Trump, are currently crashing out over his war with Iran because it affects them personally, and some worry that they're going to be the ones to be sent overseas to die for Israel. Here's some quotes. Jacob, a 20-year-old white man in Tennessee who said he felt like Trump was trolling his generation, said, like, no, this ain't no game, bro. Our lives are at stake. It truly pisses me off, honestly. Bryson, the 26-year-old Trump voter, said of the war, it makes me regret even liking Trump, honestly, and with the whole Epstein shebang that's going on, he's really probably the worst pick to be president at the moment. Yeah, no fucking shit, Captain Obvious. Trump promised to lower prices on oil. That was a complete lie because now gas is like $4, said Tyler, a white 27-year-old in Colorado. He promised lower prices on oil, did he though? And he also said groceries would be cheaper. That's also a lie. Oh, you don't say. Going back to Bryson, he said this about Iran. It was disgusting because Trump said he wasn't going to start any new wars, so why would he bomb Iran if he wasn't going to start any new wars? The only reason I could think of is Israel. If only there was an indication that he would be extremely subservient to Israel. Maybe you should have looked at his fucking donors. A 21-year-old Asian man in Georgia who declined to be named but has voted Republican in the past on whether ground troops should be sent to Iran. Hell no, are you crazy? You know, bro, Iran is filled with mountains and you already have troops dying and they're not even on the ground. That would be ridiculous. Translation, I don't want to be drafted. Yeah, well, you're probably not going to be drafted. It's going to be people in Iran who are going to pay for your vote. But that's why you don't vote for warmongers. And if you were curious as to whether or not you could determine whether or not Trump was a warmonger, all you had to do was look to his first term as president, and it would have been very obvious to you. Now, earlier this week, the Washington Post published results from a different focus group of male and female Gen Z Trump voters, where they expressed similar sentiments. 26-year-old Joshua Byers, who voted for Trump in 2024, says he feels betrayed and adds, I don't know why we are fighting in Iran if we have never been attacked. I just don't understand why. He adds, I don't really want to vote anymore. Good, then don't. I'm really starting to just think it just won't matter. I don't want to feel responsible for taking a vote and feeling misled or misjudged or making a wrong move. Too late, bitch. Lily Bureau, a 23-year-old teacher from Charlotte who voted for Trump in 2020 and 2024, said at the gathering that she initially supported the strikes, oh, fuck you, Lily, because she thought that they were intended to change the regime in Iran. Oh, okay, as if that would be something that benefits you. But her view has since shifted. Oh, that was quick. And she now believes the United States is doing Israel's dirty work. You think, Lily? It does change how I feel about Trump, Bureau said. He said there would be no new wars, and he said that gas would be below $3 a gallon. I'm not happy with him right now. Fuck you, Lily. 23-year-old James Weiss, a Republican from North Carolina, said he feels demoralized and is unlikely to vote in the 2026 midterms. Good, bitch, don't vote. I agree with this idea of making America great again, but the way he is going about it, it's not who I thought would be running this country. Really? He said after the focus group. He is really focusing on stuff that pertains to him that he is mad about, and he does not care about what we are mad about. You don't fucking say. I mean, shocker, right? Faith Peavy, a 21-year-old American Sign Language interpreter and Republican who said she voted for Trump in 2024 with caution because she felt like Harris's campaign was too chaotic. Bro, you voted for Donald Trump. Like, I was not a fan of Harris, but goddamn, it has definitely been frustrating to see him doing things that were not things he promised to do and not doing things that he promised to do, Peavy said. I feel like I'm being lobotomized by this commentary. Nonetheless, we're not done because the Cincinnati Enquirer published an op-ed from a Gen Z Republican named Thomas Maddox, and I don't have the energy to read this whole article, if I'm being honest, but the title adequately does capture the level of stupidity that we're dealing with here. Quote, I voted for Donald Trump. I don't recognize him anymore. The voters who stood for Trump expected him to stand up for the country. Too often now, it feels like he only stands for himself. I guess I'm just tired at this point. I really am. All that I want is for these dense, dumbass motherfuckers to have healthcare and education and a habitable planet, but they're fighting me at every step of the way because they think that oppressing minorities and immigrants and trans people and burning the country to the ground by electing fascists, it's what's going to make their lives better, as opposed to, say, voting for candidates who are like, hey, I want to give you healthcare. And to be honest, it's not just Trump voters. While they're obviously the stupidest, Democratic Party primary voters in the 8th District of Illinois just voted for a Fetterman-esque Democrat named Melissa Bean, who was being funded by AIPAC as well as the crypto and AI industries, even though there was a genuinely progressive alternative in the race who wanted to make healthcare free at the point of service. So I guess I don't know what to say anymore. What am I supposed to say? I talk till I'm blue in the fucking face and it just doesn't make a difference, right? It should not be a fucking Sisyphusian task to get voters to stop voting against their own self-interest, but apparently that's too high of an expectation for Americans. Like in some of the poorest states in the country, like West Virginia, for example, voters have repeatedly chosen corrupt oil barons like Joe Manchin or Shelley Moore Capito over FDR-style progressives like Paula Jean Swearengin, who was saying, I want to give your children healthcare and education. In fact, I want to give everybody healthcare and education. And they passed multiple times on that offer. Nope, we want to continue to have black lung and be poisoned. So sorry, fuck off. I mean, we are a nation paralyzed by its own stupidity, and I genuinely just don't know if it's something that can be corrected at this point. And you'll have to understand I'm still crashing out from Tuesday's election, so if I'm overly doomer, disregard everything that I have to say. But like, it's so frustrating. I understand that there's an overabundance of money in politics these days, as well as a lack of information and education, not to mention the propaganda. But at some point, voters have got to take responsibility for themselves and do maybe a 5-minute Google search before voting once in a while, or not vote for open fascists like Donald Trump, who were very clear that he intended to do some Hitlerian shit. I feel like that's a pretty easy ask, right? Like the last election in particular was an open book test. And so many Americans failed it, proudly and smugly so. So listen, when I call voters stupid, I want to be very clear. I do mean it as an insult, yes, but it's also a challenge to stop being stupid. Listen, I was deeply stupid myself when I was a young person. I was indoctrinated into evangelical Christianity, basically a cult, at a very young age, and I had a very deeply twisted, fucked up view of the world. And I was a stupid person, not as stupid as Trump voters, obviously, because that's a very high bar to pass, but I was stupid nonetheless. But I changed that. I educated myself. I was the first person to go to college in my family and get a degree, even though I didn't finish high school. I challenged my pre-existing beliefs in search of the objective truth, and I had to fight past the cognitive dissonance, and it made me feel uncomfortable, but I'm glad that I did that. Look, I still have much to learn, but after informing myself, I at least have enough common sense now to know to not vote for a candidate who wants to throw me into a fucking volcano, especially if they're running on throwing me into a volcano. So if a young, socially awkward, closeted homosexual fundamentalist Christian homeschool dropout like myself can inform myself, there's no excuse for anyone else, especially the adults. So either inform yourself or stop fucking complaining because you're getting the exact government that you're voting for, America.
Ideas. In recovery mode, my brain ideas. In recovery mode, my brain ideas.